It was March of 2016. As a family, we had actually planned a fabulous holiday, and the destination was Krabi Islands. But what stood between us and the holiday was a routine checkup for my 13-year-old daughter, Janita. You see, Janita had a slight kind of swelling on what they call the right frontal part of the forehead. When I say slight, it was really slight because it did not impact her in any way. It didn't disturb her in any way. She was completely asymptomatic. So we went through the routine of going for this checkup. But as it turned out, the checkup wasn't as routine as we thought it to be. So what we did was, instead of checking into the hotel at Krabi, we checked into Christian Medical College at Vellore. After several tests and scans, much to our dismay, we found that she had a larger growth in the retroperitoneal area. An initial biopsy was inconclusive. So the doctors suggested that we do a detailed biopsy, and the only way to do a detailed biopsy was actually by doing a surgery. Now this surgery was complex. This surgery lasted more than 8 hours. And we're talking about a 13-year-old girl here. But what ensued after the surgery was severe post-operative complications. And as a result of this post-operative complications, instead of being discharged in 7 days, Janita was in the hospital for 90 days. And I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, those 90 days was the most difficult days that we've kind of traversed as a family. Because those 90 days included 4 other surgeries. Those 90 days included running in and out of the ICU. And worst of all, to see your 13-year-old daughter, who was completely hale and hearty as she came into hospital for just checkup, all of a sudden, 4 times on a life support system. And what made it really tough was actually to be a knock on the door at about 12 a.m. on the 21st of June 2016, and to be beckoned into the ICU where my daughter lay, and the HOD of the ICU telling me, Rajiv, Janita is really sick. In fact, she is sinking. She's got into a state which is called a septic shock, and her organs are failing. The reason I called you is to be prepared for the worst. And around about the same time, you get the diagnosis of the biopsy. And ladies and gentlemen, the biopsy wasn't very great. She had a rare situation which was being between benign and malignant. And because of that, she would need to go through an aggressive chemotherapy session, multiple rounds of them, and several rounds of radiation post that, 14 to be precise. But the point was, she had to first survive coming out of CMC in the first place. And that was the challenge. So I want to ask you, as I stood there, how would you face a situation like that? I realized 2 things as I stood there. One, that your contacts, your designation, your education qualification, your net worth and your network really mean absolutely zilch or zero. Because they can't pull you out of that predicament that you find yourself in. I also realized a truth about life. And this is what I realized, that the certainty of life lies in its uncertainty. And the predictability of life lies in its unpredictability. The question then is, how do you go through the trials and tears and tragedy of life? The answer to that question is only through spiritual wellness. And it was our faith in God which strengthened our spirit to actually go through such a tough time and enables me to stand before you to tell that story. But before we get into spiritual wellness, I think it's important for us to understand the makeup of man. Man is made up of 3 elements, which is body, mind, and spirit. And holistic wellness is a reality only when each of these 3 elements are actually cared for and nurtured. The body is nurtured through a healthy diet and regular exercise. The mind is nourished, again, through a healthy thought process. The mind is like a sponge, and it's important for us to mind your mind. Because the mind will absorb emotions and perceptions and thoughts by default. But wisdom is actually moving from a default state of mind to a design state of mind. And what do I mean by that? I mean that by design, you dwell on thoughts and you feed your mind on thoughts, which actually act as a catalyst to your progress. And you dismiss thoughts which actually kill growth and lead you into a downward spiral. Well, the spirit is nourished through faith, through a submission, through a relationship to a higher power that we call as God. I love the way Scripture describes spiritual vitality. This is what Scripture says, that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and not be faint. What a beautiful description that is. And the strength that is spoken here is not a strength, physical strength, but it's a strength that helps you spiritually. It helps you to wade through the tsunamis of life, helps you to leap over the mountains of life, and helps you to climb the obstacles that come your way. You got to understand that the waves that threaten to drown you, and when the gale winds of life blow at you, it's not your experience, your acumen, or your expertise that will help you survive, but it's the strength of your spirit which will steer you not just to a place of safety, but more importantly, get you richer by the experience. And that is why spiritual wellness is actually so important. Spiritual wellness, if you practice it, will help you to focus on the internal. You got to understand it's the internal which transforms the external. I think personally, there's a disproportionate focus on the external. We buy cosmetics, but the fact is we age. We are willing to trade off our health for wealth. We invest on properties and real estate, but the question is, are you going to live on planet Earth forever? And the answer to that question is a resounding no. So therefore, I love this fact that as long as the spirit remains in a person, you are referred to as a person. But the moment the spirit departs from the person, you are referred to just as a body. Have they moved the body? When are they burying the body, they ask. How sad it is. But when you're alive, you got a fancy designation and you got a title. I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with a cab driver in Bangkok, and this is what he said. He said, as long as you're alive, you differentiate yourself by the size of the house and by the brand of the car that you drive. But death is the great equalizer. Death is the common denominator. When we come to that point, all that we matter, no matter who you are and where you've come from, all that matters is, do you have 6 feet of space to be buried in? That is so true, isn't it? The practice of spiritual wellness will help you to understand and value the valuables. So what are the valuables? The valuables are certainly what money can't buy. It is character over reputation. There are many definitions for character. Character is who you are when nobody is watching you. I think there's a lot of truth in that definition. But for me, character is simply being in a right standing before God and man. Reputation is what others think of you, and it's fickle. You can spend thousands of rupees and actually buy thousands of followers on social media. But character is the bedrock on which your legacy is actually formed. A valuable is family over fortune. Money can't buy a loving family. If I'm not successful in my role as a father, as a husband, as a spouse, as a brother and a son within the confines of my home, it's really of no consequence of how successful I'm outside of the home. You got to remember this, that emotional needs can never be met through materialistic means. Your family is your greatest treasure. It's health over wealth. I love this quote which so beautifully articulates the times that we live in, the survival of the fittest times. And this is what the quote says. It says that when we have the health, we are exchanging it for wealth. And when we've got the wealth, guess what? We're trying to make the trade-off to get back the health which we lost in the pursuit of the wealth. But that's a vain attempt. Some people eat to live while others live to eat. I certainly hope you're not part of the second category. So it's health over wealth. It's about making memories and not just money. I don't want to sound too sinister here, but there will come a day when you and me have to say goodbye to this planet Earth. And when that day comes, you're not going to take your Bentley with you. You're not going to take your iPhone 10 or X or whatever they call it with you. Because when you are gone, your memories are going to live on. So be deliberate in creating loads of memories. Laugh more, worry less, be more joyful. Because when you are gone, your memories will actually live on. Spiritual wellness will help you connect with your purpose. The reason that you and me are alive right now is because you and me have been wired with a divine purpose, if you may. And that's why you've got these talents. That's why you've got these abilities. That's why you've got these skills. As I was sitting in that hospital with my daughter, 90 days, I heard a still small voice within me said, life is short, life is uncertain. Rajiv, don't waste another minute, but go out and pursue your purpose. And that's exactly what I did. When you engage with your purpose, you realize your career is what you're paid for, but your calling is what you're made for. I want to encourage you to engage with spiritual wellness. As you practice it, you will engage with that still small voice within you, which directs you in the direction of your purpose and sets you up on the platform to chase your dreams. When you practice spiritual wellness, it's an individual pursuit. You can't delegate it to somebody. You got to do it yourself. But the point is, when you are spiritually healthy, you will be an impact to society. You will be the hands and feet of God here on planet Earth, distributing love in a world that actually hurts so much. The practice of spiritual wellness will actually make you a contributor to your circle of influence and to the society at large. So the question is this: how do I practice spiritual wellness? Well, spiritual wellness is really an outcome of faith. It's just not the knowledge of Scripture, but it is practicing Scripture as a lifestyle. It's the recognition of fellow humans, not as somebody else, but those who have been created in the image of God. And it's the conviction, it's the realization that my highest form of worship and service and love to God is actually to love my neighbor as myself. Friends, that is spiritual wellness. I want to encourage you to practice spiritual wellness. I want to encourage you to introspect. Don't get so busy making a living that you choose to forget how to live. That's what I want to leave with you. I want to finish where I started about my daughter Janita. We've got the slides up. Janita, by the way, that's Janita for you. Janita, by the way, is back to school. She's among the top quartile in her class. I'm sure she's watching it on YouTube right now, so despite her leave of absence, but despite all the success in class and school, she is such a tremendous inspiration to everybody who know her and who've seen her going through what she has. But most importantly, she's a big inspiration for Judith, my wife, and me. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I encourage you to practice spiritual wellness. God bless you.